So how much time and experience did the Picklr save you compared to if you said, screw it, I'm gonna do it myself? How would you define the Picklr brand with like a few sentences?
It's kind of balancing, like a lot of other things, the art and the science. You know, the science is the math behind how many members can you have, what does court compaction look like at separate times. But the art is, how do you design your programming to entice people to come in and want to use the facility at different hours? If you really want to make this work, you cannot have a 2, 3, 4 court facility. We put community forward. It's not about dollars and cents for us. Hey, at these lease rates, you're not going to be able to support 7 courts there. You really need 8+.
The Picklr is a rapidly expanding indoor pickleball facility spreading across the nation. Their Round Rock, Texas location, right outside of Austin, founded by franchisees Chris and Jenn, features 8 indoor pickleball courts. On top of the pro shop and the skinny singles court, they also provide comprehensive leagues, tournaments, and open play, as well as clinics. Now join me as I welcome one of the co-owners, Chris Gennarelli.
Hey, Jack.
Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome. Welcome to the pod.
Welcome to Picklr Round Rock.
Yeah, thank you. This isn't my first time inside of a Picklr, but this is my first time at this facility. And I mean, the smell of new paint is one of the most welcoming smells like ever. It's like, it's like the new car scent. It's the new home scent. And I mean, this place is awesome. It's a very unique atmosphere. And I mean, I see you guys have the black aesthetic, but I mean, the Picklr overall is a nationwide franchise, and you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you own this Round Rock franchise.
Yeah, that's right. Together with my wife, Jenn Zanfardino, we are the franchisees here in Round Rock. We've been open for just over 3 weeks. And I just gotta say, if only pickleballs themselves had a brand new smell, I think that would be the one thing to add to this for sure.
For sure. Same with paddles.
Yeah.
So going in, just a little bit about you. Let's talk about like your personal and professional background in the sport or outside of the sport. How you and Jenn came to decide to do this one day.
Yeah, it's actually probably maybe not a crazy story, but a little bit unexpected. We moved to Austin 9 years ago from Hoboken, New Jersey. Decided that we wanted to embark on a new adventure. We had visited here, really enjoyed it, and decided to take that leap. So moved down here. We both actually undertook pretty significant career changes at that point. I had been working in capital markets and switched over to product management in several different tech companies. And Jenn actually started her own business at that point. She does corporate consulting for internal HR communications. And so, yeah, we kind of embarked on a brand new life down here. And several years into that, like so many other folks, COVID happened, and we picked up pickleball. Yeah, really enjoyed it, kind of embraced a new community there. And just like moving down here 9 years ago, we kind of had the itch recently to go on a new adventure as well, and decided that this was going to be the path that we would take.
Got it. Okay, so how long have you guys been married?
We've been married for 15 years.
Wow.
Or this will be year 15 right now.
Okay, and it seems like you guys have started a bunch of ventures. Like this isn't your first one. I mean, so Jenn has her consulting, and then you've switched around jobs a lot. So you moved here specifically for your tech role?
No, actually, we moved here just because, again, we wanted to try something new. It just kind of dovetailed with an opportunity for me to switch from one to the other. So it was a good opportunity. Austin was a great tech town, so I took that opportunity. So yeah, I guess kind of the common thread there is trying to grab opportunities.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. Much better than New Jersey. So
yeah.
I don't blame you there. Yeah, so how's your, do you follow the pro scene in general, or like when you were starting out, were you just playing like eight hours a day, or how'd you fall in love with this?
Only a couple times did I play 8 hours a day. So we have courts in our neighborhood. We were very fortunate, just converted tennis courts or shared tennis courts. So played with a few folks in the neighborhood, a lot of singles early on, because picking up the rules for doubles was a little difficult for us. But after about a year of that, picked up the doubles, got in with a good group in the neighborhood. So yeah, I'd say most times I was playing probably about 3-4 times a week. And then from there, started kind of venturing out into some of the areas where there were courts, like Lifetime Fitness is where we actually started playing for the first time indoors. And kind of had the idea to say the court compaction there is obviously so significant that so many people had the same idea at the same time, right? Which is we need to start an indoor pickleball business. So that's kind of how we ended up there.
I still do believe that it's not oversaturated just quite yet.
I think I agree.
I still think there's a lot of people, like just because Austin does not have enough like public rec courts. I mean, you have, like, I'm from Buda, so like we have like the South Austin bits, we have a bunch. I'll just list off like Pan Am, we have the hotel courts, we have Rosewood, like we have a bunch, but that's still not enough to keep up with the demand of the people who want to play.
Yeah.
And also, like, you know, half of those that I listed are like, you know, there's weeds growing in them, or like this space is an issue, or all of that. So even though we've seen like 7 facilities at least open up in the Austin Metro, it's still like, I mean, it's still fine. Have you seen any sort of impact with your membership regarding the fact that the past 18 months, a lot of facilities have opened up?
Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold. You know, you hit on one of the points already, which is there's definitely a need for courts. But because everybody kind of grew up playing for free on the courts, I think the indoor model is a little bit of a culture shift for them, having to pay to play, as opposed to just finding the time to play at some of these other free outdoor facilities. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, I think, for the player themselves to feel like, okay, this is potentially worth spending money on. We all think Austin has fantastic weather and it's great, but you know, I think if you kind of actually put a measuring stick to it, probably only about 50% of the days over the course of a year are really good pickleball days, right? You're fighting the wind, the heat, the cold, the rain.
Yep.
We could always use more rain. But from that standpoint, right, you're talking about 50% of the days versus here. You know, we like to say at Picklr, it's always 72 degrees in the Picklr. It's actually a little cooler here today. So.
Got it, yeah.
And the second piece of that is, you know, talking about the actual facilities themselves. I think they've actually started to come up with a unique identity for each of them, right? So Eastside has an identity, Austin Pickle Ranch has an identity, and I think we're establishing a slightly different, newer identity here as well. And so I think there's actually a place for everybody within Austin to find the club that resonates most with them. And yeah, I don't think we're necessarily to a point, as you said, that we're reaching saturation.
For sure. So have you noticed a difference in terms of not only elasticity, but the difference in peak hours when you have an indoor facility compared to these other outdoor facilities?
Yeah, without a doubt. So obviously, you know, you talk about, it's a lot of math that goes on in trying to run a club like this and trying to figure out what is the appropriate number of members to have while still delivering on the value proposition. If you have, you know, a certain amount of members, they all want to play at the same time, it's really difficult, as you said, to provide that elasticity. So how do you get the programming to a spot where people want to come in some of those other hours? And so it's kind of balancing, like a lot of other things, the art and the science. You know, the science is the math behind how many members can you have, what does court compaction look like at separate times. But the art is, how do you design your programming to entice people to come in and want to use the facility at different hours, so you can kind of spread that usage out across the day instead of focused in on 4 or 5 hours of the day. And that's something we're still learning right here, having only been open 3 weeks.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I assume even after 2 years, you'll still be like constantly adjusting, as well as like, I mean, the Picklr umbrella as a whole will help you with that as well. But what I've always wanted to do here in Austin with all the facilities opened up is do an owner tournament where we get like 8 owners, and we run a tournament at like each facility, like it's 1 game or something, and just see who's the best, most talented ownership group. And so we get like Eastside, whatever, the Lab, y'all, and a bunch of others, and then do an ownership tournament.
We're on board. I don't know that we'd win, but we're certainly open to participating. I mean, we'd even love to just get an inter-club league going, you know, between those other facilities as well. You know, I think back to when I was a kid, you know, playing travel soccer and stuff like that, ice hockey. So it'd even be fun just to kind of have some inter-club challenges there. But as far as the ownership goes, we have a couple folks on our staff here, pros, that maybe I can give them a few bucks to step in our place instead.
Yeah, totally. So let's go back to, I mean, your beginning. What made you open up a franchise or decide to open up a franchise with the Picklr in Round Rock, rather than just starting your own independent facility? And how involved were they in this process? Did they buy the land, you lease the land, or did you pick the location, or how involved were they?
Yeah, so we had the idea to pursue this again, like so many others had, and we started building out some models. We started doing some crude analysis on what costs look like for leases, price per square foot. Again, I have some background in analytics, so I was building some models and kind of identified that if you really want to make this work, you cannot have a 2, 3, 4 court facility. Like the overhead is just too much to warrant the investment in that space. There are very special circumstances where that's not true, but given our limited connections and knowledge in the space, we felt like you really need 8, 10, 12 courts to really make a go of it. So we had spent several months kind of going through it, and very serendipitously, we were at F1 race here in Austin like we do every year.
That's awesome.
And the Picklr had kind of a pop-up.
Yes, they did. Deco in there. Yeah.
So this was not this past year in 2024, but in 2023.
Okay, yeah.
So we met the folks there, good crew, and had some conversations with them. And by the end of the weekend, they said, hey, why don't you come out to Utah, do our discovery day. Utah's where the Picklr's based. Go through our discovery day, hear what we have to say, learn more about our business model, and think through if it's the right fit. So we went out there, super impressed with all the folks there and all the knowledge that they had. They'd been running facilities, almost like kind of test and learns themselves, based in Utah. We met with them, had some conversations with some of the other franchises as well, but decided that for us moving forward, that Picklr was going to be the right fit. But then to the second half of your question as well, this facility in particular, it's a very arduous process to try and identify the right space. Again, you're moving now into the math versus the art part of it. Like you need a very specific size building. And then within that building, you need the columns to be a very specific width to be able to fit courts, or at least within a range of sizes. And then it's all about the efficient use of space at that point. You don't necessarily want to be using or not using the space appropriately, and kind of if you have 2,000 square feet of dead space, that can really impact your lease and monetization ability throughout the facility. We always feel that when we talk about it in those terms, because it just always sounds like dollars and cents, and we actually come to it from a very different perspective, which is we put community forward. It's not about dollars and cents for us, but regardless of that, in order to make the business work, the dollars and cents have to work. And so Picklr really helped us kind of go through that process. They understand what that overhead looks like. They understand what the compaction rates look like, and the appropriate amount of members. But here we made a very conscious decision to choose this location as well in a retail space. I think we're pretty unique in Austin in that sense, in that there aren't very many indoor pickleball facilities that are within kind of bustling hub of retail space.
That's true. Literally, there was, is it a Ross? What is it?
There's a Five Below right next door.
Yes, there's a Five Below right next door. There's food on the other side of the street.
Yeah, we got bars and restaurants. There's a Target here.
So that also means a lot more parking.
Yeah.
Which was also really clutch, because I know a few facilities that I've talked to struggle with parking. Especially during peak hours. Do you notice with it being indoors, you're able to charge more of a premium compared to outdoor facilities?
Probably. So it's 2 points to that. One, going back to the parking, I think our landlord is thrilled with the amount of cars that he's seen in the parking lot here versus when this space was vacant for 2 years. So that's great. But as it goes for the costs, again, we're kind of stepping into a still nascent but maturing market. So we're not the first, indoor pickleball facility. And so to a certain extent, the customers have kind of been trained on what to expect and what the price barriers are. Fortunately for us, we were within those barriers on how we wanted to, or within those thresholds with where we wanted to kind of price ours. And so ours is a little bit different. We tend to offer a little bit more with the base rate. We don't try to do extra charges for court reservations if you're a member. We don't do extra charges for clinics or anything like that. Our leagues are included. So from that standpoint, we do have a little bit of a premium compared to some of the other facilities' base rates, but we do feel that the members also get a little bit more for that as well.
Yep, and I'm a big fan of that model. I've been telling a lot of facilities, just focus on doing a universal rate rather than charging per hour per court just at a discounted rate when you buy the base rate. It's so many members get annoyed when they're like, I'm already paying $100 a month or $150 a month, then I have to pay $25 for a court. It's that's a lot more annoying for them to deal with. So we'll talk about all of the leagues and stuff like that later, but let's talk about the Picklr's involvement with this development. Have they did both of you guys mutually agree on the space? And then did you negotiate the land lease, or how did this entire work, and how involved was Picklr?
Yeah. So they were very involved and very helpful, especially being our first. Hopefully we can open a couple more. But we were very new. We'd never been involved in commercial real estate before. So we were working with a local commercial agent here, helped us kind of identify a few potential locations. And we start out with an LOI and kind of go through a process where you identify kind of the key points and come to a general understanding that says, all right, as we move into an actual lease negotiation, these are the terms upon which we're going to base kind of the more fundamental conversation. This wasn't the first space that we had that conversation on. We had several around town. This was the one, we actually left and came back to this space a couple times. And ultimately, my wife Jenn was able to identify a court layout that worked in this space that we hadn't previously seen before. And so once we were able to get to 8 courts here, that's kind of was the key unlock for us, again, going back to that efficiency piece. Before that, we had really only kind of discovered a 7-court layout, and then the price discrepancy between the lease amount and the potential revenue base at that level wasn't going to work.
All right, now wait one moment right there, and I want to talk to you guys about Pro XR Pickleball. I've been using these paddles for 2 years now, and these truly are the most innovative and best paddles on the market. Personally, I'm using their new Prototype 12.7 standard shape, and this is my go-to paddle for tournaments, and I've been using this for about 6 months now. I truly do believe this is the best paddle on the market. It has a crazy poppy core, which is exactly what you need going into 2025 when you're gonna get reamed in the chest every single rally. So thanks, Chris. Now you can go ahead and continue.
But again, that's kind of where Picklr can really help, right? Because they understand how those things balance out and could really coach us through that process and say, hey, at these lease rates, you're not going to be able to support 7 courts there. You really need 8+. So those are the conversations that we have throughout the process with Picklr. They have professionals on their staff as well that really help us kind of go through with that negotiation process that say, hey, these are the 3 or 4 different levers that you can kind of pull during the process. Obviously, the landlord understands those as well, and they're trying to balance out those same 3 or 4 levels. So you basically kind of make trades, right, that say, okay, we're willing to give the landlord a little bit more here if we can get a little bit more on this end too, to help balance out what our potential cash flow and ramp up looks like, during the build out phase and over the first 6 to 12 months as well.
Got it. So how much time and experience did the Picklr save you compared to if you said, screw it, I'm gonna do it myself?
Really hard to quantify, but a ton. Even with their help, I still say this was me getting another MBA, right? Like this learning process has just been incredible for Jenn and I. But frankly, I'd say, we probably would have, I was gonna say we probably would have spent 25% more, but maybe it would have ended up being the same. But what we got for the money was, I think, of greater value, right? So Picklr has a very specific aesthetic, and I think it does have a premium feel to it, and so there's a cost associated with that. If we did it ourselves, we probably wouldn't have elevated to that premium experience right away. Coming from my product management background, it probably would have been more of an MVP, right? Before going into like the full-fledged. But I don't know if that's the right approach now. Like coming to market with something that people walk in the first time and are like, whoa, this is bigger than I thought. This looks so much cooler than I thought. I think there's significant benefit in that maybe we hadn't appreciated when we first started in this process.
Got it. So how would you define the Picklr brand with like a few sentences?
I think it is an elevated brand. I think it's a clean brand. And I think it's one that is coming at it through the right perspective of growth in the sport, kind of being a national brand. What we're trying to do is establish cohesiveness and the right partnerships that become household names, right? And I think that is actually going to be very important down the road for the viability of this model, which is still pretty nascent. And so when people think of indoor pickleball, hopefully, 2-3 years from now, the Picklr is what comes to mind right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it already is starting to become one of those facilities just because of how much they're investing into a few pro players. I mean, you saw they've picked up Hayden, they've signed Hayden, they've signed Anna Bright, and a few of those that helps, on a nationwide level, just bring exposure everywhere.
Absolutely.
Because these players provide validation for people to come to you guys rather than a one-off facility.
Yeah, Connor Garnett as well.
Yes.
And actually, we're so excited here at Picklr Round Rock. Michael Lloyd is our in-house PPA pro. He trains here. He is hosting a clinic here this weekend. So yeah, he's really invested. He's super excited to be part of the team here. We're excited to have him. He's been tremendous in the first 3 weeks we've had him already. The amount of interaction with the members, they love him being around as well. He's been bringing a couple other pros through the facility as well, which is really cool. People have loved seeing him train with Leia Jansen here a few times. So yeah, I just think there's so many cool value additions that come along with that for members to be able to have access to that.
Yeah, and that's something else. I mean, you don't need to go like super in depth, but how important is it for you to get pros into your facility to provide validation? Is it something that's like high priority, or just something that like you're willing to go out of your way to sign a pro exclusively, or just say, hey, you have free space here? How does that relationship work?
Yeah, by no means do I think it's mandatory, right? Like, I mean, the other facilities around here are doing well, and they don't necessarily have that. I mean, pros go in, right? But nobody, I don't think, quite has the same relationship that we have with Michael just yet. That doesn't necessarily need to be normalized. But going back to before as well, this year at F1, Picklr was back, and Michael Lloyd was there, and that's where we met him face-to-face for the first time. I found out that he was moving back to Austin from Arizona. I didn't realize that was happening, and so we just kind of struck up a conversation, familiarity with each other, tried to decide if this was going to be something that we both wanted, decided that it was. But most importantly, I think it works because we're aligned in our values and our vision, right? Like, I don't think Michael would necessarily have, and I hope I'm not speaking for him, but we've had this conversation. I don't think he was looking to just join any facility. I think he saw our vision and our commitment to the club itself, rather than just, we weren't going to be owners that just kind of disappeared behind the scenes. I mean, we're here every day, at least one of us, Jenn and I, and he likes that approach, right? He likes that we're invested in it, and we like that he's invested in it. So we like to describe it as, it's not transactional, right? Like, even though there is a transaction behind it, that's not actually the basis for the relationship.
Okay, well, there were two things that I want to talk about, but so it seems like the Picklr is also willing to invest some money into those events like F1 and things that are pretty unique for a facility, you know, for owners to do. I've never seen, I've seen, I don't know, I haven't even seen another facility do something like quite that big. Like, I mean, that's a pretty big partnership with F1.
Yep, for sure. They were at the Super Bowl last year in Las Vegas as well.
Yeah,
so they've taken some big swings.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like it paid off. Like, you meet people like you, and then that's where it goes. But so would you say, just because I was curious when you said 8 courts, is that the magic number that you found to make the business profitable?
For this space, yes. And ultimately, again, there's lots of moving parts. And so you can make a space profitable at 10 courts. You can make a space profitable at 12 courts. I think we've seen here in Austin that 16 courts works as well. You know, provided that the rest of the numbers match, I think there are opportunities to have a member base be able to support numbers as high as that. I think 16 is probably the cap here within Austin, but that's probably the range, right? That kind of 8 to 16 model.
Got it. So would you consider most Picklrs to be like a mid-size facility? Because is 8 courts considered that's still mid-size?
I think 10 courts is probably the target for Picklr in most areas. It was our target initially as well. And so I would still say that 8, 9, 10 is probably the top of mid-size, right? Once you start getting into like the 12 to 16 size, I think those are probably pretty large facilities. Anything smaller than that, you actually, interestingly, typically don't see anything in that like 5 to 9 space, or sorry, the 5 to 7 space, just kind of really doesn't exist. But there are some other places that are 4 courts and fewer as well.
Got it. Yeah. The only one that I've seen do it successfully is obviously the Lab with 1 court, but they're kind of a unicorn.
Yeah.
And then Urban with 6 courts.
To that end, though, going back to maybe a part earlier in the conversation, like there are always going to be those very unique opportunities, right? And if you can do something super distinct and stand out, like have a rooftop in the middle of Austin, like there's an opportunity there that doesn't exist in brick and mortar like this. So.
For sure. So is it much more difficult to scale when you have less courts? Is that how the trend works?
I think there are pros and cons, right? So the scalability challenges, I think, are probably different, slightly different, not entirely different, across 8 courts versus 16 courts. The amount of people you need to get to maximum like threshold or occupancy is going to be lower at 8 courts, but 16 courts provides you far more flexibility in your programming, right? Like you can offer more things at the same time than you can in an 8-court facility.
You can, you can host leagues, clinics, and open play at the same time.
And reservation, you can do it all at the same time. And so I think that's probably been our biggest challenge is how do we continue to support our member base as effectively as possible, as often as possible. But once we figure that out and we get those things into place, I think we probably have a good opportunity to be successful at 8 courts at a lower membership kind of hurdle than some of the other places.
So is it discrete, or do you, I mean, keep in mind you're 3 weeks in, but do you have any insight on your membership numbers?
I think we're probably pretty close to where we expect it to be at opening and within 1 month of opening as well. I think we are actually kind of exceeding our targets here within the first month, given where we started. And so definitely on the right trajectory. We have 3-month goals, 6-month goals, and 9-month goals as well. So if we keep heading in this direction, I think we can head into the summer on the right foot. And obviously opportunities there once summer hits in Austin for people to reconsider moving indoors as well in the summer heat. And so if we're in the right position and we have the opportunity to then have that next stage of growth through the summer, I think we'll be well positioned kind of heading into the back half of our first year and our second year.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. So I've heard a few back and forths. I've heard it on both sides with facility owners on whether seasonal changes in, just the temperature affect membership numbers. And from what the Picklr has taught you with their own numbers or what you've learned talking to other facility owners, do you think there's going to be like a decline over fall or an increase over winter, or do you think it's just like stable growth?
I certainly don't think it's linear growth, right? Like I think you're always going to see those peaks and valleys as you go through. I think the other people in town, the other facilities in town have already experienced that. And so I don't think it's going to be different necessarily for us. But again, kind of to that point is if you're well positioned to potentially capitalize on when it swings back in your favor, I think that's great. But also hopeful that because, again, of the slightly different value proposition that we have here, that folks may not necessarily be as enticed to leave, given that they get leagues and clinics and maybe some other things included with their membership here that might make them want to stay and reconsider potentially leaving for 2 or 3 months at a time.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And the simpler your membership is, like on a number basis, then the easier it is, or the more difficult it is for them to just simply unsubscribe and resubscribe.
We hope so. Again, it's a nascent business model, right? I think I said that once before, so I apologize for repeating myself. I don't think the definitive way forward in indoor pickleball has been proven or discovered yet. And I also don't think it's going to be just one, right? I think it's going to be different across geographies. I think Picklr is quickly learning as they've ramped from single-digit facilities to 30 that they're very different across regions. And I think it's actually, we're discovering, even very different within Austin, right? Like there are different player pools in South Austin, in Central Austin, in North Austin. Their expectations are a little bit different. And so you have to invite people in, speak with them, listen to them, understand, and then figure out like, okay, how do we best meet the needs of this very particular community?
That's true. So you ran, what is it called? Demographic analysis on the Round Rock area to then determine how you were going to structure the membership model or just design the facility?
Yeah, even that's relatively crude though. Like in terms of looking at numbers on a piece of paper for demographics, it's somewhat helpful. It gives you kind of guardrails when you go into opening, lease negotiation, all that stuff. But in terms of how do you actually create programming to support those people, there's nothing on paper that can explain that to you. It has to be learn about the people within your facility, have the conversations with them, see what they want. Right? And I think it's actually even a little bit different than we had anticipated. We know that Austin is a very excited market for open play compared to some other parts of the country.
Very true. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Well, it's funny, like Picklr in general as a franchise was just very surprised as we were going through that process and kept reiterating like open play, open play, open play. Compared to Utah, they don't have a ton of open play within their programming because the people there just don't demand it as much. But it's such a interesting, unique part of the Austin pickleball culture that we want to make sure we offer as much of that as we can. But there are so many challenges that come along with that as well, which is how do you break up the open plays in such a way that people are choosing the right
4, 5, 8
play.
hopping in the 3-0s.
Oh my! Let me tell you, like we have a 4-5 program here. It's like everybody's banging down the door to try and get into that because we have it gated right now, and so everybody's like, I gotta get in that. I gotta get in that. So it's been a challenge for us.
Yes, for sure. And I've even seen some facilities go to the extent where they have like where the owner or like a pro goes there and like hits with them and judges them.
Oh, we're doing that. Yeah.
Where it's like, you shall not come here, or like you shall go in the 3-5 bracket or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
It's hilarious because it is tough to sort. Like duper can be inflated or deflated, and
that's the issue.
An issue. Yeah. So I definitely see it. That would be tough. I'd hate to be in that spot. And another thing is, I think you're a great example of this, and I hope your franchise succeeds. We've seen both people that come from a very, very well-developed business background come into pickleball, as well as people who are just like very passionate about pickleball and know like every pro, every name, everything, and then they try to open up a facility, and they can both succeed well, just in different ways. Like they hit different demos. So I also think it's good that people from different backgrounds come in and create different facilities that target different needs.
We agree wholeheartedly. So Jenn and I think have pretty good business sense. We've done a lot of different things. We've learned a lot in all of our different experiences for sure. You asked this before, I didn't actually answer. I watch a ton of professional pickleball. I just actually really enjoy it. Not for any like business learnings or anything, except maybe to just kind of understand like the types of people that are going there. But from that standpoint, yeah, I agree. I think there's lots of different ways to approach the pickleball business. I just think, again, from what we've learned, you just need to be open to listening and adapting and changing, right?
That's true, yeah.
And it's different stages. Getting through the process of negotiating a lease and construction and opening is like, two very unique and very difficult challenges. And once you overcome those and get to open, it completely changes, right? It's like all of that stuff is, you don't need it anymore, like except for the next iteration of that, which we hope would go better because we've learned a lot through that process. But yeah, so many challenges come along with actually running the facility. And so one thing that we've tried to do is bring in folks who have some experience. So we've reached out into the community and brought some people in who have knowledge already of facilities that have been open and can help teach us and show us the ropes and maybe help us not make the mistakes that some of the other places have done.
Yeah, for sure. Like the Dallas Mavericks trading Luka, bro. I don't even know. Like that's just what I think of where it's like bad management. So let's move into all the different things that these courts can provide. You mentioned leagues, which seem like very important for the Picklr. You mentioned privates, clinics, as well as open play. Can you break down with these 8 courts, what's your pie in terms of time spent on court for all of these different avenues?
Yeah. One thing that's been really interesting for us and didn't necessarily expect it is our clinics have been a hit. People love them. I think part of it is that we're offering them consistently, that they're structured in a way that people can see a progression through them. Like if I start here, then I can go to this one, and then I can go to this one, and there's a path to continually get better.
Game.
Yeah. And again, kind of bringing in the folks that I think support us. Jake is a fantastic coach here. A lot of people know him in the community. And so he's been phenomenal in helping kind of unlock the usefulness of the clinics here that maybe some other facilities don't necessarily see that as a significant value proposition for their members as well. So we're typically using, even in the evenings, we try to allocate 2 courts for at least 2 hours each to those clinics, even during the week, during peak hours. It's just great for our members to be able to jump in that for an hour and then transition right into open play afterwards and be able to try out some of the things that they just learned.
I agree.
Yeah.
I remember doing clinics. I love doing clinics and then trying to do like everything in open play and then absolutely shitting the bed. But it was like, that's some of the most fun I have is doing clinics and then playing open play right after. And, you know, even if open play is part of the clinic, you know, like just being able to, you know, you learn the backhand roll, you do it for a little bit, and then you do it in the game, and then you actually feel like you're implementing it.
Absolutely. So yeah, our evenings are primarily dedicated to open play and clinics. We try to keep our reservations to either before or after that in the evening. Obviously all day we have availability for reservations. We also have clinics and open play during the day. Different pockets are now kind of showing up for each of those things. The community is starting to find their place and find each other and jump into things throughout those. You know, through the first couple of weeks, it can kind of be a little bit difficult to have some particular pieces of the programming stand out from others. But I think the community itself is starting to find those areas that they want to commit to and start developing as well. During the week also, I know we said we're focusing primarily on clinics and the open play. We do carve out time for some competitive events like leagues. So like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings, we have time for a men's league, a women's league, a co-ed league. We also do events across 2 or 3 courts like you know, the challenge courts or the King's Court, Queen's Court, things like that, just to provide some variability in the programming that's being offered. Similar to an open play, but a little bit different. Let people kind of get their competitive spirit going a little bit also.
Makes sense. So in terms of a profit per court perspective, are clinics just the end all be all? Like if you could do 8 courts of just clinics, that's where you would make the most money, and then open play would be the least amount of money? Or like, do you, just from a back end perspective, is that like where the profit would come from?
I think it depends day to day on who's participating. And again, the interesting thing here is most of the time the people participating in the clinics are doing it for free because it's part of our membership model. So it's actually not a revenue center from the perspective of, hey, we just made $100 in that hour. We tend to think of it as it's a revenue center in the fact that we're providing a value for the 8 members that participated in that other facilities aren't doing, right? So it's not maybe a direct relationship between we just earned this many dollars for this hour. It's an indirect relationship that says our members want to stay members because they were able to do this as part of their membership for free. Does it kind of make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like your members are a lot more inelastic than
I hope so.
Than other facilities.
We'll see.
Yeah. No, for sure. And with all of your backend, your reservations, your booking software, is it the Picklr software, or do you work with, like, say, for example, Sweat Pals for leagues, or is everything in-house with the Picklr?
Everything is guided by the Picklr. It does span across several different apps sometimes. So our entire backend system is white labeled through Play by Point. But we do run other things through other systems. For instance, we run a lot of our leagues and tournaments and the competitive events through the Swish app. And so that's been really useful. It's a bit of a challenge getting everybody onboarded to it, kind of creating an account, uploading their information, connecting to Duper. But the huge benefit is already 3 weeks in, a significant portion of our membership base is now in Swish. And so the next time they come, it's really fast and easy to set that up and get them moving in kind of those round robin events or tournaments.
Got it. Okay. Something that's like very, very unique that's like impressed me is how this isn't really your full-time job. And you're talking like it's like, I mean, you learned a lot, or yourself for researching it. But so but is this like, would you say, I mean, obviously you're clearly not spending as much time with this as you are your full-time job, but you're still growing this like it is your full-time job. I mean, what's one of the secrets to how you delegate your time, or just how you make this work with your current obligations?
Yeah. It's a lot less sleep than I used to get. So to that end, you're right. I am obviously still very committed to my full-time job. That is my passion. I don't intend on doing this full-time. It's more of a ramp period. What we'd love to be able to do is get our staff trained, get our club coordinator and GM in here and making sure that they fully understand and that it can be operational without us. That doesn't mean we won't have a presence. We always will. But it won't need to be as significant as it is right now. But kind of going back to the comment of, or the thought about how much we've learned and how invested we are, I think that just speaks to, we wouldn't do this any other way. Like, we wouldn't commit to this if we weren't doing it that way. For instance, when we started with the Picklr, we were talking through different opportunities or options in terms of where we could franchise. One of the folks at Picklr heard that we were from New Jersey and that market was still available and was asking, hey, do you want to, maybe do this in New Jersey? And, Jenn and I had a very brief conversation and said, we can't, there's no way we could do this if we weren't present and being able to be there and listen and talk. And so from that standpoint, yeah, I think we've learned so much because it's, from our point of view, the only way you could possibly be successful.
Got it. So you mentioned your full-time job is your passion.
Yeah.
This is also a passion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
As in, is this, you're obviously not in this for huge millions and millions of dollars, but is your end goal to exit this?
I think with most people and most long-term plans, yes, there's going to be an exit. I don't think we have thought through what that timeline looks like or when or how necessarily, but yeah, is this something that we're going to be doing in 20 years? I doubt it. Is it something we're going to be doing in 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. So from that kind of point of view, it's we want to be able to grow it, get it to a more mature place. I think if you ask the folks at Picklr, they'd probably say the same thing, right? Like, you build a franchise and you see what happens with Jersey Mike's, right? You build it up and a private equity company wants to come and give you $8 billion for it, and you say, please and thank you. And all that hard work leads to some sort of good reward for all the folks who have invested their time and energy in helping to build that. Mm-hmm. But that's I think exactly what you said. That's not our primary driver right now. It's number one, we just embrace new challenges. We wanted to try something new. This seemed like a great way to potentially do that, to learn and bring something of value to the community, right? That's something that's kind of become important to us. Through our time together, we've always been invested in some kind of different fitness tribes, if you will, to kind of go back to a term that was thrown around a bit 5 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, we found a home in several of those over the last 12 years together, and really appreciated those environments. And for us to potentially bring that environment to other people to come together and find those groups and find that community really gets us excited.
It's 4 o'clock and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people at the front desk, maybe 6 courts. Yeah. And I have no affiliation with the Picklr. So every single podcast I do is completely unbiased. So let's talk a little bit about like the facility cannibalization with the Picklr, because I think you guys are, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are the only facility franchise that has multiple locations in Austin.
That's correct. And we're actually probably the only pair in the Picklr franchise ecosystem right now that are this close to each other. There's a couple that are also probably pretty similar, but they don't actually share the same city. Technically, we're Round Rock, but it's pretty much the larger Austin ecosystem. There's a few others. So it's an interesting concept that we're kind of embarking on, especially since the other Austin location is a different ownership group as well. We're very fortunate. They're awesome. So we talk to them quite frequently. We stay in touch. We try to make sure that we're aligned on our vision for the Picklr in Austin as well.
Yeah. So do you guys work together, or do you guys just keep each other in the loop, or is the relationship more independent?
I think it's a blend of all three, right? So we definitely try to keep each other in the loop as much as possible. We do operate fully independently of one another, however.
So there's no like shared membership model where if you pay a little bit extra, you can have both? You
actually don't have to pay extra. When you join a Picklr, you get access to every Picklr facility in the country. So one of the very unique, I think, value propositions for members, and our hope with them, the other membership group here, is within a year or two, if we have 4 Picklrs open in Austin, no other company could say that one membership gets you access to 40 courts. Right? Like that's just something that nobody else could offer, and it's kind of very unique. So we're not there yet, but I think that opportunity is exciting too.
Got it. Yeah. No, it makes complete sense. And I know we're spending a lot of time talking about the facility.
Yeah.
But I love asking these questions to owners. What amenities do you want in your facility, and what amenities do you think are not worth it for your facility to provide?
This is part of the reason we also decided that we wanted to be with the Picklr. A lot of the franchises are pretty similar as well. But for us, it was pickleball focused. It's not entertainment. right? We were never interested in doing a bar or a restaurant. From our point of view, too much time is spent on not delivering the actual expectation of the members, which is pickleball. I don't want to worry about food inventory or alcohol or hiring a bartender or anything like that. Those things, I think, just take away from our ability to deliver a premium pickleball experience. I think there are definitely opportunities to offer some complementary amenities as well. We're not focused on them right now, again, because our objective is getting the pickleball off the ground. We'll definitely explore what those potentially look like in the future. I know you've talked with other folks as well about whether it's saunas, cold plunges, anything kind of physio related, right? And from that perspective, again, if there are opportunities, we can. I think we would probably prefer to do those more on like special one-off cases, have somebody come in, do a one-day or multiple-hour thing, to kind of showcase somebody else's business. I don't know that we necessarily want to offer those in-house full-time, but we're open to it.
Got it. So as in like subletting space for, say, for example, like Wired, with what they're doing in Austin, with the Austin one, something more like that rather than you hiring them and doing all of that.
Yeah. I think there are multiple approaches to it, and a lot of it is dependent, again, on the actual physical space itself, right? How efficient are you able to use it? And if you have pockets of your space that you can't put a pickleball court in, how do you potentially monetize it then, right? Like, how do you effectively use that space and say, okay, I can't have 2,000 feet or 1,500 feet of unusable space. Maybe subleasing it is the appropriate path forward. And so for us here, I think we've done a really good job of maximizing the amount of space that we have. There isn't a ton of room to bring in somebody for those very specific kinds of alternative amenities. Sorry, it took me a minute to think of it. Those extra amenities. But for instance, in another future location, if we had that space, we'd definitely consider it.
Makes sense. I know, like, one of my dreams is to open an academy in pickleball and like train the second or third wave of kids that are coming up. Because right now we're seeing the first wave of kids that are truly like homeschooled through middle school and high school to pursue pickleball. And I think that's like really awesome to be able to take my knowledge and my experience as a pro, and then whether it's partner with the facility or do something and then create some sort of academy. Yeah. And then that academy will have basically like the IMG of pickleball. And that's one of my end goals. I know there's a lot of pros that are looking to do that, but that'll be my passion project when I'm 35 and looking to, and can't play pickleball anymore.
All right, well, let's pull that forward a little bit. That timeline. Picklr has a junior academy, and so it's actually something we're very committed to here. There isn't a lot of it in Austin right now, and so we specifically brought our coach Jake Hobaugh in for that as well. He's super passionate about that. Michael Lloyd is very passionate about bringing pickleball to the next generation of players. We are as well. And so if you are looking for a facility, I know you're angling for a little bit of payout here. So if there's an opportunity and you really are interested in that, we could definitely have a conversation about how to potentially get involved. If it's not the right space for you, that's okay too. But I'm just joking. We're super focused on the junior program as a whole. And so we can't agree more that it's super exciting to be investing in that next set of players, and we already have a few here that are like blowing our socks off.
No, we have this on the APP. We have this. I think he's 13 or 14. His name's Camden Chafin. And he's like freaking crazy. I'm pretty sure all of us have heard of him. He's absolutely nuts. I remember when he was like trying to qualify, and now he's like winning and trying, like he's making round of 16, which is absolutely nuts. Like, if I got spanked by a freaking 14-year-old, I'd be pissed. But I want like an all-encompassing academy where it's like, you're still like not neglecting class, because a lot of these homeschools just don't really do class. And then teaching them like how to build a brand, how to market, taking care of their body as well. It's not like just come train for an hour or two, like full stuff.
We could certainly use some help on encouraging or teaching our juniors on how to build a brand and market. That's not our super strength or kind of our core focus, but you're obviously very good at it. So if you want to lend a hand, we're definitely open to having you teach some folks on how to market their Instagram pages a bit more.
Okay, so let's wrap it up with a little bit about what you think regarding pickleball as a whole.
Yeah.
And the entire, I'd say, nationwide. How do you envision pickleball facilities evolving or changing within the next 3 to 5 years?
I don't know how much they'll change necessarily. I think what's going to potentially evolve is how it's offered to the public. And again, how it potentially gets really geo-specific. Like, how do you potentially say, this is the membership model that works for this region or this membership base? And how flexible are these companies in being able to deliver on that within those different communities? It's hard to be scalable if your offerings are kind of, run the gamut of different price points and everything like that. So it's a challenge from a franchise perspective. So from that point of view, mom and pops might have an advantage to a certain, because they can flex more quickly and make changes that maybe necessarily a franchise can't. However, I do believe that with the amount of information and connections that franchises have at their disposal, I think you'll probably see 2 or 3 franchises stand out over time and kind of be the primary place that people choose to go and play pickleball 3-4 years down the road. Mm-hmm. But, similar to coffee, right? Like, people go to Starbucks, they go to Dunkin', but they also love their mom and pop shop around the corner. So I think both will work. It's just a matter of within that specific area, what is the membership kind of demand from them?
Makes sense. Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot more development. So currently, as of right now, how many Picklrs are there?
I think we're right around 30.
Okay, 30. And so in the next coming years, the Picklr said that they're gonna build 300 new facilities, or franchise 300 new facilities, and build 2,500 courts with that. Yeah. That's an insane growth trajectory.
It is.
That really is.
Yeah.
With all of those being franchised, that gives them an advantage, and as well as their current brand. How do you think franchising will change over that time span?
They're going to learn a lot, right? Like, it's great that we're having the information again provided to us from what they've learned so far, but that's really based on a dozen facilities, right? And again, the other 18 have only opened within the last few months, and after this 30, there'll be another 30 this year. And so all of a sudden now there'll be 60 running. And so the amount of volume and data and information that you can collect over that time span, I think potentially changes. How you can potentially get the next wave of franchisees off the ground. How do you get them up to speed quicker? How do you get their programming up to speed quicker? You'll be able to see pockets of information that say, okay, in a demographic like this is the niche model that works. In a demographic like this is where you may want to kind of focus as soon as you open your doors. So we've had to take a lot of that on ourselves, and it's no offense to Picklr, there's just not a lot of information that they've been able to provide, because Austin is so different than a lot of the other markets.
That makes sense. So like, now that you have the Austin data, now you can go and project that into Miami. Or now that you have the Utah data, then you could project that to Colorado.
Sure.
Or something like that.
They'll be able to much more easily identify and find comparisons across their franchises and facilities that are opening, and be able to give them far more direction and education when they open, to say, like, all right, these are our key areas of focus for the first 30, 60, 90 days.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And how do you see pickleball evolving as not only a sport, but also the community aspect of it?
Yeah, what's amazing is I think the community aspect of it already is like so incredible. I think the sport itself has significant room to grow. Obviously, with the changes that we've seen in the last 18 months already are pretty significant from a professional level. And whether that trajectory takes it towards gambling, whether it takes it towards the Olympics. Interestingly, both of those things are things that validate the sport in very different ways. But when they do, I think it just gives a little bit more credibility towards bringing those youth through, right? All of a sudden now saying, again, we talk about it all the time, saying nothing would give me more joy than for a boy or girl to come into our program and get a college scholarship, because we gave them an opportunity and a space to develop those skills and say like, I get to go to college now because of pickleball. That's in the horizon, right? Like, I mean, you see this, like, it's going to be a varsity sport.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
going
trying to get
be
them the
right?
scholarships.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know all about it, obviously, with your Longhorn Pickleball Club. So, yeah, I think those are huge areas of opportunity for pickleball growth, is making them really viable sports, both within the high school, college, you know, and down into youth sports as well.
Makes sense. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy
appreciate
man.
yours.
I know you
Yeah.
got another job to go to now.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But seriously, I'm going to drop everything about the Picklr and Chris down below. If you guys have any more information, make sure to comment. And thank you so much for your time.
Come check us out in Round Rock.